Here's 10 things I wish I knew sooner about training legs. These tips are based on anecdotal and science-based evidence. They would have saved me so much time when I first got into fitness, made my training sessions more enjoyable, and helped me train with more purpose, rather than just going through the motions. Tip number 1. Barbell squats are not essential. Barbell squats are a great foundational exercise for size and strength, but they aren't essential when it comes to building good legs. While I don't think barbell squats are essential, I think the squat movement in itself is essential. In the past, I religiously did barbell squats, and while they did give me good leg growth, I saw better leg growth and overall quad activation from other exercises like pendulum squats, hack squats, and Smith machine squats. These squatting alternatives also have two other advantages over the standard barbell squat. The first is flexible feet positioning, much more so than the standard barbell squat. You can adjust your feet more freely to suit your hip structure and maximize the contraction of your target muscle group. The second is stability and minimizing injury risk. Machine squats provide more stability through a locked movement path. This decreases the load on your spine, reducing the risk of injury. With all that said, if barbell squats work for you, then by all means use them. I still use them sparingly in my leg training, but don't feel like you have to program them in your routine to build big legs. Proper execution with other alternatives are very effective too. The next tip is aim for at least a 90-degree depth on your squatting movements. Deeper squats activate more muscle fibers in the quads, glutes, and hamstrings than partial squats. From my personal experience, I get a much better quad pump from deeper squats. Most people have the ability to squat much deeper, but there's two main reasons why they fail to achieve a full range of motion. The first reason is because they're ego lifting and using weights they can't control. If they used lighter weights while focusing on proper execution, they'd be able to squat deeper. Bodybuilding is about using the weights as a tool to stimulate muscle growth. While progressive overload is certainly important, it shouldn't come at the expense of poor execution. The second reason is differences in mobility and bone structure. Mobility can be improved through stretching and soft tissue work like foam rolling and remedial massage. In terms of structure, if you're someone like me with a longer torso relative to their femur, you're likely able to squat more upright and achieve a deeper squat. For those with shorter torsos relative to their femurs, you'll be forced into a more forward position when squatting, making it harder to achieve depth. What you can do to correct this is use an accessory like a squat wedge or elevated heels when squatting. This elevation will help you achieve a deeper squat and get the most out of your leg training. Tip number 3, use higher rep sets in your leg training. Legs respond well to a variety of different rep ranges, but a lot of people leave gains on the table because they're not performing higher rep sets as well. Sets of 8 to 12 reps are great, but sets of 15 to 20 reps really took my legs to another level, especially on isolation movements like leg extensions and leg curls. Calves are no exception to this. 8 to 12 reps work for calf training, but using sets of 15 to 25 reps can really help your calves grow. And guys, when I say 8 to 12 reps, 10 to 15 reps, or 15 to 25 reps, I'm talking about training to failure, or at the very least being 1 to 2 reps shy of failure in that rep range. You need to be training with intensity, especially if you're an intermediate or advanced lifter. Next up, lean back and open up your hips on leg extensions. This is a real game changer, and something that Tomplatz, the quad father, did in his training. By leaning back and having your legs in a more stretched position to initiate the leg extension, you'll get better engagement and contraction of your quads. Before you lean back, you'll have to adjust the seat backwards. Not all the way back, but enough to open up your hips to a comfortable position for you. Keep your butt on the chair throughout the movement. I also squeeze the handles beside the chair as hard as I can to provide some counter traction. This helps me contract my quads harder by locking my body in place. Try it out for yourself next time you train legs. The next tip is train your calves and hamstrings first. If you're lagging in a certain part of your legs, then train them first or earlier in your workout. For most people, this is usually calves or hamstrings. Training a lagging area first when you're fresh is the best way to give it 100% focus and balance out your legs over time. If you leave them to the end of the workout when you're tired, you're less likely to give them the time and effort they need. But if you're like me and you prefer to get your main squatting movement out of the way first when you have the most energy, then that's completely reasonable. Just make sure you program your weak areas directly after this first exercise. Over time, if your calves and hamstrings still aren't where you want them to be, dedicate a separate day to train them. Tip number 6. Seated leg curls are king. For hamstrings, I personally only ever do 2 exercises. The first is the Romanian deadlift, either with dumbbells or a barbell. The second is the seated leg curl. Seated leg curls are great because they allow you to load your hamstrings in a stretched position without loading your spine. I also think they're superior to lying leg curls because of their starting position. The main difference between a seated leg curl and a lying leg curl is the amount of hip flexion. The seated leg curl utilizes more hip flexion than the lying leg curl, which places the hamstrings in a more lengthened position. Most of the current research supports training in longer muscle lengths for greater hypertrophy. This doesn't mean the lying leg curl isn't effective at stimulating hypertrophy. The seated leg curl is just more effective. Next up, slow down and control the eccentric on target movements. With the exception of my main squatting movement, where my focus is on mechanical tension, on most of my other exercises, I make it a priority to control the negative or eccentric portion of the movement. As I've mentioned before on this channel, eccentric contractions or negatives performed at longer muscle lengths cause more muscle damage than concentric contractions. You're also stronger in the eccentric portion of a movement. Controlling and slowing down the eccentric on key exercises like Romanian deadlifts, leg extensions, leg curls, and calf raises are a great way to maximize your muscle building potential. When you're training, it's also important to be aware that many exercises we perform in the gym end with the eccentric portion. That means in order to take these movements to failure, you need to tax the eccentric portion of the movement on the last rep as well. The next tip is an important one. Preparation is key for leg days. I recently made an Instagram post about this because it's something that's not talked about enough. Leg days are taxing on your mind, body, and nervous system. They're notorious for making people feel nauseated and run down. In order to prepare and give yourself the best chance for an effective leg day, here are 5 things that you can do. Pre-hydrate with at least 1 liter of water during the day before you go to the gym. If you train early in the morning, then hydrate with at least 1 tall glass of water beforehand. Have a carb-heavy pre-workout meal. I like to have a large meal with a good amount of carbs 45 minutes to 1 hour before my leg day. Use intra-workout carbs and stay hydrated. I sip on an intra-workout drink with a good balance of fast-acting carbs and electrolytes on most of my leg days. There's so many options to choose from. I like Gatorade. Once I finish this, I'll continue to hydrate with water. Don't sleep on sleep. Aim for 8 to 9 hours of sleep the night before. This is especially important before leg days for our nervous system to be primed and ready. Have a good warm-up routine. Dynamic stretching and light foam rolling is what I like to do before my leg days. Foam rolling before training legs is controversial, but I personally find that doing a bit of light foam rolling makes my squats feel so much smoother. Preparation is key, guys, so keep these 5 things in mind before your next leg day. Next up, follow a structured routine and avoid junk volume. My leg days are very simple. I start with a squatting movement to overload the quads. After this, I'll move on to either seated or standing calf raises. This is followed by dumbbell or barbell Romanian deadlifts. I end the workout with leg extensions and leg curls. I don't routinely do leg presses anymore because I maximize my squatting movement.
Nothing's like squats. I mean, it's like nothing compares to squats. You can do leg presses, but why? Why do an inferior movement?
My programming is simple, but I train with high intensity and get the most out of every set that I do. This is super important, guys. We're only in the gym for 60 to 90 minutes. The goal is to choose specific exercises, perform them proficiently, perform them with intensity, and then leave. This in combination with progressive overload is how you grow your legs. Having a structured leg routine is the best way of measuring your progress over a training period. Without structure, it makes it harder to analyze what's working for you and what isn't. Having a structured routine also minimizes junk volume. Volume is the product of total reps, sets, and loads performed in a session. Junk volume is any sets and reps that don't contribute to hypertrophy. Junk volume can be the result of poor exercise selection, ego lifting, not pushing close to failure on your working sets, or doing too many sets per muscle group. Junk volume is counterproductive to hypertrophy. Balancing intensity with enough volume to drive hypertrophy should be the focus of your training. In general, a good ballpark for this is 10 to 20 hard working sets per muscle group per week. The final tip is make time for mobility and soft tissue work between sessions. This tip is something that I'm working on improving myself. Longevity is the most important thing when it comes to bodybuilding. Mobility and soft tissue work between sessions is the best way to ensure longevity and reduce your risk of injury in the gym. Stretching, foam rolling, and remedial massage is extremely underrated when it comes to muscle and fascia health. Oftentimes, we don't even realize how tight and inflexible we become from repeated leg workouts. Scheduling dedicated soft tissue work on your rest days or at the end of your workouts is something that will benefit anyone in the pursuit of bigger legs. And guys, as a bonus tip, make sure you're pushing yourself, because ultimately your effort is what produces results. As the quad father Tomplatz said, there's a reason people don't squat. It's hard. People don't want what's hard. They want what's easy, what looks showy. Forget about it. The same thing in life is the same thing here. If you can do this, you can do anything. That's 10 things I wish I knew sooner for bigger legs. I hope you got something out of this video, guys. Leave a thumbs up if you did. As always, see you in the next one.